administration has taken conflicting positions on whether or not the COVID pandemic constitutes a public health emergency. Could you please explain to the subcommittee how the department can justify arguing in court that the pandemic has subsided enough to warrant the termination of Title 42, which will worsen the problem of tens of thousands of unvaccinated migrants illegally entering the country, while at the same time arguing in a separate case that the public health consequences are dire enough to warrant compelled mask usage by Americans on public transportation?
Yes, thank you, Senator. It's just, I think, important to me to explain the role of the Justice Department, which is not to make judgments about the public health and really not to make judgments about policy in either of the two areas that you're raising, but rather to make determinations of whether the programs and requests of the agencies that are responsible for those are lawful. So with respect to the mask mandate on the planes, I think this is quite transparent. The CDC announced its assessment that this was a program that was continued to be necessary in the confines of airplanes and public transportation. The only question for us is that a lawful, and they asked us to appeal. The Solicitor General concluded it was lawful, and so we have appealed. With respect to Title 42, it's the same analysis from our side, from the Justice Department's side. The only question here is the CDC's program, and the CDC's announcement and its assessment. And we defend that program as long as it's lawful. We don't make the public health determinations that you're speaking of.
And I understand that. I think that the CDC has put the Justice Department in an untenable position of arguing one position in one case and a completely conflicting position in another case. But I understand that you don't make the public health determination. Let me switch to another consequence of the uncontrolled southern border. In the year between September 2020 and September 2021, more than 104,000 Americans died from drug overdoses. In Maine, we set a horrific new record. 636 people died from drug overdoses. That was a 23% increase from the previous year. In 2021, the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency seized more than 10,000 grams of fentanyl. That's a 67% increase from the previous year. Just 3 months into this year, agents tell me that they have already seized half of last year's total. Law enforcement officials in Maine and elsewhere tell me that these drugs are largely entering the United States through the southern border, where resources that could be targeting drug interdiction are instead being diverted to help with the influx of migrants illegally crossing the border. Do you agree that the government's inability to secure the southern border has led to more drugs coming into our country?
Look, the opioid epidemic, and particularly the influx of fentanyl, is just horrifying and extraordinarily sad for the large numbers of Americans who are becoming addicted and who have become addicted. The job of the Justice Department is to fight the large-scale drug trafficking organizations that are bringing this these drugs into the country. And that's the reason we have asked for large increases for all of our anti-drug programs. The DEA has asked for a $102 million increase, which is for a total of $3.1 billion to fight the very issues that you're speaking of. The U.S. Marshals Service has asked for $1 billion for drug trafficking fugitive capture. The U.S. Attorney's offices, $106 million. The FBI, $161 million. The Criminal Division for $46.9 million, including regional opioid task forces. And the COPS grants, the money that we're giving includes the money for the anti-heroin and anti-meth task forces. So we are asking for all the money we can get, and we are not stopping here. As you don't know, I announced the indictment and extradition of the former president of Honduras to the United States to face justice for organizing drug trafficking coming out of the Northern Triangle. We will be persistent in that effort.
Thank you.
Senator Manchin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Honorable Merrick Garland. I want to thank you for your continued support of